Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining for today's session. So, really sorry for the 5 minutes of delay which happened right now. So, it was because of a small technical glitch. We were unable to create that event. Okay, so we'll put the session on standby for 5 more minutes so that more people who are yet to join will join the session. And we'll begin the session sharp at 4:09 p.m. Thank you. So, good evening, everyone. Myself, Javed. So, as it's Thursday, I'm back again with an wonderful session of Keka webinar, which is attendance tracking. So, am I clear and audible to everyone? Can we just have an yes on the comment? Yeah, cool. Right. So in this session, we would be dealing with an special topic, which is attendance tracking system. So if you remember in the previous session, we have covered on the capture scheme, like how you can mark your attendance using web clock-in or remote clock-in or what you can say biometric punches and all. Okay. So after tracking the attendance, so how do you want to capture your tracking policy? Okay. So what does the tracking policy include? Okay, so tracking policy includes certain things such as late comings or early leavings, or if you have, okay, so if you have any early leavings or any employees who is not completing their gross hours. Okay, so we'll capture all these things. Let's assume if there is any employee who didn't attend office for a particular day, okay, who is on uninformed leave. Okay, so what do you want to do with such cases? If you want to deduct an unpaid leave, or if you want to deduct and paid leave first, then deduct the unpaid leave. Okay, so you can segregate all these things in this tracking policy settings. Okay, so we'll discuss more in detail once we go deeper in that, right? Okay, so without much delay, let me just quickly share my screen. Like for the people who are joined for the first time in these sessions, we would be sharing you the recordings of all the previous sessions over the chat very soon, so that you would be able to refer it in future, like what were the sessions, and uh, that would help you in more in detail, right? Here, I'll quickly share you my screen. Just give a moment. Yasha, your video and audio will be turned off automatically, so you would not be allowed to. Yeah, just give a moment, one last minute. Screen share a window. Oops. Why this is so troubling me today? Okay, not much trouble. Okay, right. So I believe you should be able to view my screen now. Cool. Thank you. Right. So as you are aware, like today's session is on complete tracking policy. So if you remember, we have discussed on the capture scheme and all, like how the employees can mark their attendance and how you can manage your capture scheme and all. Okay. So our main motto on this session would be creating a tracking policy. Okay. So how do we create a tracking policy? We'll discuss from the scratch once more, right? So we need to navigate to time attend, and attendance tracking. Okay, so under attendance tracking, you would be able to manage your capture scheme, tracking policy, and all, right? So once you click on this tracking policy, there you would be able to find all the tracking policies related to your company. So in case if you want to have an new tracking policy to be created, so you have this option of add tracking policy, right? So I'll click on this add tracking policy. So right. So in this first step, we need to give the tracking policy name. So I'll just say webinar tracking policy. Okay, so I can copy the same under description as well. Okay, right. So whenever you have any tracking policy, so there would be from a start period. Okay, so when does the start period start from for tracking policy? Okay, so usually some companies a week would be starting from Wednesday. Okay, so there would be Monday and Tuesday week off. There may be cases where Friday and Saturday would be a week off. Okay, so in such cases, so when does your week starts from? Okay, so as a regular case, I would be taking it as a Monday as an tracking policy start date. Okay, so and tracking policy start date from So you can give it as April, first of the month, right? So I'm missing, screen is not visible. So it's actually full screen. Still a problem. Is it clear now? I've zoomed a bit. Just let me know if it's clear, because it's on this different page. I'm unable to identify. Yep, right. So we can set the tracking policy starts from. Okay, so there may be cases where for people the tracking policy would be starting from 26th of the month, and for people it would be starting from 21st of the month. So they would be comparing it with their payroll activities as well. Okay, so as a standard policy, I would say preferably take it as first of the month. Okay, so my tracking policy week starts from Monday, and the tracking policy month starts from first of the month, right? So this would be the basic information that would be required in the first page. Okay, so moving on the second page, which is no attendance, right? So I'm zooming a bit now, right? Okay, so what happens when there is no attendance? Okay, so let's assume the employee forgot to mark his attendance for a particular day, though he's present. Okay, there may be cases where employee hasn't attended the day. I mean, he didn't reach the office, or he took some unplanned leave for that particular day. Okay, so in those cases, what do you want system to do for that cases? Okay, so do you want system to automatically deduct leave when there is no attendance logged? Okay, right. So what you want to do? So no, do not let the system automatically deduct leave, so that you will not say a system to deduct leave. Okay, so you only you yourself would be deducting that leave by going to that employee's profile. Okay, so no, if you want to have an automation on that, you can select it as yes, deduct leave automatically based on the rules defined below, right? Okay, so what happens is deduct 1 day of leave for every single day having no attendance. Okay, so you can mark it as 0 days, or you can mark it as 0.25, you can mark it as half day, you can mark it as 1, you can mark it as 1.5. Okay, and so you can follow the category, right? So whenever there is any no attendance for a particular day, so you'll be able to select like what is the number of days that is getting penalized for that employee on that particular day for which he has no attendance, right? Are we on the same page? Yep, right. Okay, so the next point refers to is if a holiday is adjoining a day which has no attendance log, is it considered as a leave? Okay, so let's take an example. Holiday, right? Okay, so today is Thursday. Okay, so let's assume Friday is a holiday for your company on some occasion. Okay, so what happens? Let's assume you have taken 27th as unplanned leave, which has no attendance for that particular day, and following day is an holiday for you. Okay, and again there is a week off for you. Okay, which is Saturday and Sunday. Okay, so there are 4 different scenarios for this. So if you are taking an unplanned leave along with an holiday, okay, so if holiday is right between 2 leave days with no attendance, then it would be a sandwich policy. Okay, okay, so what happens is in the first case, so if the holiday is right between 2 days with no attendance, okay, so let's assume Thursday is holiday for you, and you have not appeared to the office on Wednesday as well as on the Friday. Okay, on both the days you don't have attendance, then as per the sandwich policy, even your holiday would be considered for the penalization, right? So I repeat, so whenever there is an holiday on Thursday, okay, so if you have taken an unplanned leave on Wednesday as well as on the Friday, okay, so which are the adjoining days of this particular holiday, right? So if you take an unplanned leave on these both the days, then even the holiday between these 2 days would be treated as a sandwich. Got it? So moving on the next point, which is if day with no attendance is right before a holiday. Okay, so let's assume we'll take again the same example. Thursday is an holiday for you, and Wednesday you have not appeared to the office. Okay, so in that case also, so one day before the holiday, which is Wednesday, if you have not appeared to the office, then both the days would be treated as penalization. Okay, so both the days you would be getting penalization, though it is an holiday for you because you have not appeared on the previous day of the holiday as per the policy. Okay, so moving on the next option, if day with no attendance is right after a holiday. Okay, so that the before option was for before. Okay, and the next option is after. Right, so next option which refers to, again will be taking the same case. So Thursday was an holiday for you, and on Friday you have not appeared to the office. Okay, then both the days would be considered as an penalty for you. Right, so though it is a holiday, you would be penalized for that day. Okay, so that's about the holiday. So when holiday is between the uh, non-working days, I mean with no attendance days, sorry. Right, so coming to the next option. Right, I missed one more option, which is if a day with no attendance is before or after or in between. Okay, so all these three options combinedly is the fourth option. Okay, so which is before or after or in between. Okay, so if you want to have the three cases in a single go. Okay, so even the day with no attendance is right before or after or in between the holiday would be penalized. Okay, so in case if your company doesn't follow any penalization process, you can just select it as no. No holidays have nothing to do with this having no attendance log. Right, so moving on the next option, which is if a week of days adjoining a day which has no attendance log. Okay, so let's assume Saturday and Sunday is a week off for you. Again, we will be taking the same cases here. Okay, Saturday and Sunday is week off for you. Okay, so if the week off is right between 2 days. Okay, 2 days with no attendance. So in the first case, it would be Friday and Monday. Okay, so if you are applying, so sorry, if you are on unplanned leave, okay, which is no having no attendance for the particular days, which is on Friday and Monday, then along with Friday and Monday, both Saturday and Sunday would be treated as penalty for you because so you have no attendance for this particular days. So as per your sandwich policy, all the 4 days will be treated for the penalization. Right, so in the second option, if the holiday if the day with no attendance is right before a week off. Okay, so if you don't have any attendance for a day before a week off, which is Saturday and Sunday, if the day before is Friday. Okay, so if you don't have attendance on Friday, all the 3 days would be treated for the penalty. Okay, so the next option, which is right after, so in this case it would be Monday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday. Right, so in the next option, combinedly of the three options, which is before or after or in between. Right, so on the above we have classified like how do you want the penalization to happen and how many days it should happen. Okay, so if you just scroll down, how are leave deducted. Okay, so on the above, on the top we have defined like how many days and what days to be considered. Okay, so in the below we need to define which leave type would be considered as an penalization. Okay, so here in the first option we can select it as all penalties to be treated as unpaid leave. Okay, so and the deduction happens after 2 days of the incidents. Okay, so the employee would be given 2 days of buffer time to regularize his attendance. Okay, so let's assume after 2 days the employee comes and knows that he has missed to mark his attendance though he's present, or he want to apply a planned leave which he forgot to apply before leaving. Okay, so that we are giving a 2 days of buffer period for employee to apply for the leave. Okay, so in the second option, deduct from available paid leave first. Okay, so if you want to deduct before deducting it as unpaid leave. Okay, so if you want to deduct it first from the unpaid leave balance, you can select the uh, second option, which is you would be selecting the paid leave first. Okay, so if I want to define paid leave for deductions. Okay, so if I say first I need to complete my comp off, That means penalization would be cleared from a comp of first. If the penalization, if the comp of balance sets to 0, then I would be saying a delete from a casual. Penalize from a casual. If the casual has been also cleared, okay, so comp off has been cleared, casual has been cleared, then go to the unpaid leave balance. Okay, so deduct from available paid leave balance first. Okay, so if once I have completed the balance in my comp off and casual, then system will automatically deduct it as unpaid leave, right? Okay, so this is about the no attendance tab. So are we clear so far? Can we move to the late arrivals? Are we clear till the second page so that we can go ahead with the third page? 1S anymore? Yep. Thank you. Right. So we are done with the no attendance. So let's assume the employee arrived at the office. Okay. And he has attendance for the particular day. Okay. The next case would be the late arrival. Okay. So what happens to the employee logs when he arrived lately? Okay. So how do you penalize when there is a late arrival? Okay. So how does the penalization happen in case of late arrival? Right. So employees are penalized if they exceed allowed number of late comings incidents in a week or a month. Okay, so you can enable this option. So that's related the first option, like you are allotted to come late. Let's assume you have in 15 minutes of buffer time. Okay, so and you would be able to come for 5 times in a month. Okay, so that you would be able to manage in the first step. We'll go in brief mode. So employees are penalized if they exceed allowing number of late comings incidents in a week or month. All right. So the first option is related to the incidents, and second option is related to the cumulative hours. Okay. Right. So in the first option, what is the grace period or tolerance beyond which employees' arrival is considered as late arrival? Okay. So there may be cases where companies considered as giving as a 15 minutes of buffer period. Okay. So they will be allowing employees to come for 15 minutes of late. Okay, so after 15 minutes, let's assume if the employee comes on 16 minutes late, okay, then then the employee is 1 minute late for the day, right? So that you would be able to manage in the first step. Let's assume if your company allows 30 minutes of uh, late in your company, so you can mark it as 30 minutes. Okay, right? How many times an employee is allowed to come late before being penalized? Okay, so how many times do you allow employees to come late in a late? Okay, it may be in a week, it may be in a month. Okay, so I would suggest you to go with week, and I would say 2 times in a week. Okay, so you are allowing employees to come 2 times in a week late. Okay, so after which penalization comes into the place. Okay, so you are allowing 30 minutes of grace period, and apart from the 30 minutes grace period, if the employee is still coming late, and you are giving this 2 times of exemption. Okay, so if the third time also if employee is coming late, then then the penalization comes into the picture, right? So post to late arrivals in a week, how are employees penalized? Okay, so we are saying that 0.5 days of leave is deducted for every 1 time of late arrival, right? So after 2 times in a week, if the employee is coming late again for the third time in the week, then he would be deducted half day of leave for every single time of late arrival, right? So I repeat the settings once again. Okay, so you are giving the 30 minutes of grace period for which employees can come late. Okay, so after 30 minutes, sorry, how many times an employee is allowed to come late? Okay, you are saying that 2 times in a week he can come late. Okay, so post 2 late arrivals in a week, how are employees penalized? You are saying that after 2 times of late arrival, he would be penalized a 0.5 of day leave for every 1 time of late arrival, right? So that's about the first setting. Okay, so moving on the next setting, which is employees are penalized if they exceed cumulative hours of late comings allowed in a week, day or month. Okay, so penalization for cumulative late coming hours is based on. Okay, so there may be certain cumulative hours the employee would be allowed to come in a week of late coming. Okay, so let's take for a week. Okay, so if the employee is late by 3 hours in a week, deduct zero point 0.5 days of a leave. Okay, so it can be 15 minutes a day. Okay, so it can be 1 hour a day. The total cumulative hours per week are 3. Okay, so if the employee is late by 3 hours in a week, okay, so first day it can be 1 hour, second day it can be 1.5 hour. Here we have covered it 2.5. Then remaining 3 days, if it comes 10 minutes of delay. Okay, sorry, video. Okay, right. Right. So if the employee is late by 3 hours in a week, deduct 0.5 days of leave. Okay. So if you want to have one more scenario, you can give it as if the employee is late by 5 hours, then deduct 1 day of leave. Okay. So you can segregate in such a way. Okay. So right. So once you are done with the above settings, you have one more setting, which is, do you ignore late arrival penalization if the employee completes gross effective hours? Okay, so let's assume there may be cases where employee comes late. Okay, so though after coming late, if he completes gross hours, okay, there would be organization where they would be giving an exemption. Okay, whether you want to go with the exemption or whether you want to penalize, you can select the second option. Okay, so there may be cases where companies still deduct penalization though he complete the effective hours for the day. Okay, so in that cases you can select the second option, which is no penalization for late arrival happens irrespective of work hours completed. Okay, so in case if it is the first option, yes, ignore late arrival penalization if the employer works for desired 100 effective hours or gross hours. Right, so that's regarding this penalization settings. And moving the next option, which is how are leave deducted. So again, this is the same setting that we had in the second page, which was related to no attendance. So whether you want to deduct the unpaid leave or whether you want to go with the paid leave first. Okay, so in case if you want to go with the unpaid leave, you can select the first option. Right. Okay, so we are done with the third page. So are we clear on this? Can we move to the next page, which is work hours? Okay, okay, yep. Thank you so much. Right. Okay, so the next option, which is for work hours. Okay, there may be cases where employee doesn't complete the work hours. There may be cases where employee leaves early for the day. Okay, so what do you want to do with that cases? Whether you want to have a penalization in place or not. Okay, so do you want to penalize or deduct leave for shortage of work hours? Okay, so if you want to ignore, you can just put it as no. Okay, so if you want to deduct on that as well, you can enable an option which is yes, leaves are being deducted for shortage of effective hours or gross hours. Okay, all right, so you may have a question like what is the difference between effective hours and gross hours? Okay, so effective hours in a day are calculated at the total time in the office excluding break hours. Okay, so and the gross hours would be considered the total time spent in the office including the break hours. Okay, so if you want to go with the effective hours, it would be excluding the break hours. If you want to go with the gross hours, it would be including the break hours. Right, so if you want to go with the including option, you can select the gross hours. Right. All right, so only as leaves are being deducted for shortage of gross hours based on the criteria defined below. Okay, so deduction period, I would be keeping it as daily so that you would be able to understand more in detail for which day the employee is getting penalized. Okay, so I suggest we to go with daily. Okay, so deduct 0.5 days of leave. Okay, so if an average gross hours is less than, if the employee didn't complete 85 of his shift hours. Okay, so he should complete 85% of his shift hours per the day. If he is not completing the 85 hours, then then the system would automatically deduct zero point 0.5 of the from his leave balance. Okay, so we will be adding one more criteria, which is deducting 1 day of leave, which if he is not completing at least 50 hours shift hours, right? So you'll be able to create that. So the next option, which is what happens when there is a penalty to be applied for the late coming incident on the same day. Okay, so there may be cases where employee may come late for the day and he's also leaving early for the day. Okay, so what you want to do in that such cases? Okay, so there are three options again: ignore penalty for late coming and apply penalty for gross hour shortage. Okay, so in the first case you can ignore penalty for the late coming and you would be more concentrating on the completing the gross hours. Okay, so in the second case, ignore penalty for the gross hour shortage and apply penalty for the late coming incident. Okay, so though he's short of the gross hours, you will be still applying more concentrating on the late coming incidents. Okay, so in the second case, apply penalty for both gross hours shortage and late coming incidents. Okay, so though the employee completed these gross hours, I mean, though he didn't complete the gross hours and he is late, he's already late for that particular day. If you want to consider both the cases as penalty, then you can select the third option, right? Okay, so there is one more interesting option below that. If you just check, so consider gross hours of employee between shift start and end time only. Okay, so with respect to the shift assigned for purpose of tracking policy. Okay, so you are saying that system should consider only the shift start and end time for the gross hours. Okay, so if you want to consider only the shift hours for the gross hours, you can select this option. Okay, so right, so again we have the similar option in the below, which is how are leave deducted. So either you can either go with the unpaid leave balance or you can go with the first paid leave balance, right? Okay, so are we clear on the fourth page, which is work hours, so that we can proceed with the missing swipes? So Manjula, you're saying that there are effective hours and gross hours are always same for me, for you in Keka. Okay, so I believe the reason might be because you are using the web clock-in and remote clock-in as of now. Okay, so in case if you are taking any break, you need to take a break. I mean, clock out for the day. Okay, again when you are starting your shift, restarting your shift, again you need to clock in for that particular day. Okay, so then the effective hours and gross hours would differ. Okay, so effective hours and gross hours would only differ when you are taking in breaks in between, right? So got it, cool. Right, so we are proceeding with our final page, which is missing swipes. Okay, right. So missing swipes. There may be cases where employee doesn't clock in for the day and forgets to do the clock out for that particular day. Okay, so there may be again two cases. Okay, the employee might have forgot or employee might have left for the day too early. Okay, so without intimating to the authority. Okay, so what do you want to do with that such cases? So what you want to do when the gross hours for the day shortfall due to missing swipe. Okay, so whether you want to treat it as shortage of gross hours and penalize according to the set rules in the previous screen, or ignore gross hours calculation for missing swipe. Okay, so if you want to ignore the missing swipe and ignore gross hours calculation for missing swipe, so if you don't want to have penalizations in place for the cases where employee forgot to clock out, you can select the second option. In the first option, if you want to have the penalizations in place that we have created in our previous screen for the work hours. Okay, so if the employee didn't do the clock out, definitely he would be falling out for the shortage of the gross hours. Okay, So if you want to have penalizations in place according to the rule set in the previous screen, you can select the first option. So in case if you want to ignore the missing swipes for the gross hour calculation, you can select the second option. Okay, right. So the next option, which is what do you want to do when the arrival time is calculated as late due to missing swipe. Okay, so let's assume the employee forgot to do the clock in for that particular day. Okay, so treat it as late arrival and penalized according to the set rules in the previous screen, or ignored a late arrival calculation for missing clock and swipe. Okay, okay, so if you want to ignore the clock in for the particular day, I mean for the penalizations you can ignore in the second point. Okay, so if you want to capture the penalization set in the previous screen, okay, so for the late arrival as well, you can select the first option. Okay, so treat it as a late arrival and penalize according to the rule set in the previous screen. If you want to deduct the leave, you can select the first option. If you want to ignore the late arrival calculation, so you can select the second option. Okay, so do you want the system to deduct leave for days with missing swipes? Okay, so irrespective of the shortage of work hours or late arrivals, okay, so whether you want to deduct do you want the system to deduct leave for days with missing swipes? Okay, so after even completing the gross hours and even the employees on time. Okay, so there may be cases where organizations still want to deduct leave if the employee is still on time and completed the gross hours as well. Okay, so in that cases we can say it as maximum 3 days of missing swipe is allowed in a week. Okay, so after which for 1 days of missing swipe you would be deducting 0.25 days of leave. Okay, so we are saying that 3 days of missing swipe is allowed in a week, right? So after which after for every 1 days of missing swipe you would be deducting 0.25 days of leave. Okay, so if you just want to deduct 0 days of leave if the missing swipe exceed maximum allowed days. Okay, so if you just want to deduct so you are saying that you have allowed 3 days in a week. Okay, so if we exceed that limit, you are saying that 1 day of leave should be deducted. Okay, so if you want to do it for every single instance of that particular 3 days, you can select the first option. So if you want to deduct a lump sum amount of leave if he exceeds the particular days of limit, so you can select the second option. Okay, so the next option refers to ignore missing swipe rules when employees greater than of shift hours. Okay, so ignore sweeping is missing swipe rules. Okay, so there may be cases that we have defined for the missing swipe. Okay, so these are the above missing swipe settings. Okay, so ignore missing swipe settings. Okay, so when the employee completes the effective hours which is greater than 90% of the shift. Okay, so if the employee completes the 90% of the effective hours, then you are saying that ignore missing swipe rules. Okay, so these settings would be useful when you want to streamline the process and make sure that employees work more than 90% of the shift hours uh, to don't capture the penalizations. Okay, so right, so if the employee is not completing these 90 hours, then definitely these missing swipe rules would come into place. And depending upon the missing swipe rules, so how are the leave deducted? Okay, so again it would be the same. So whether you want to go with the unpaid leave or whether you want to go with the paid leave balance first, right? So you can select certain criteria. So right, so once we are done with this, so we can just save and close. So we are done with the tracking policy. Right. So are we clear on this tracking policy settings so that we can go to the assignments and check how does it work and all? Thank you. Thank you, Kirti. Okay. Right. So once we are done with the tracking policy creation, so under the summary, you would be able to view like what is your tracking policy says, like you have an with when there is a no attendance, you have a 1 day of leave for every no attendance. Okay, so adjourning week off are considered as leave. Okay, so when there is a late arrival, half day of leave if late by 3 hours in a week. Okay, so 1 day of leave if late by 5 hours in a week. Okay, so these are the different criteria that we have defined. Right. So for assigning the tracking policy to employees, we need to navigate. So we have two different types of doing this. So one is going individually by employee level. By going to that employee, we'll just navigate to one of the employees profile. Sorry. Right. So under job, you would be having this time. Right. So there you have this tracking policy. Once you click on edit, you would be able to define that. So here is our webinar tracking policy. Right. So this is how you are assign it individually. So by navigating to that job, then you have this attendance tracking policy, then edit, then you will be able to search for that webinar policy and done and update, right? And the next option which I was referring to, so in the same tab under time attendance tracking, okay, so there you have this tracking policy allocation, right? So here you would be say if you want to assign it in a bulk for any particular department or any for particular location or any previous tracking policy that you want to move, let's assume there are few employees in a different tracking policy for whom you want to move to this particular policy, so you can move that. So I'll just take few employees. So there are certain 392 employees for this per tracking policy. I'll be selecting all of them and I'll be saying that I'll be updating the tracking policy, and we have this webinar tracking policy in place, update tracking policy, right? So this is how we do it. So here if I just select webinar tracking policy, so I would be able to be like who all the employees are part of this particular tracking policy, right? So this is how we do the activity in a bulk way. So even I would be able to search this, my webinar tracking policy. So automatically all the employees have been got assigned to this particular tracking policy, right? So at an individual level, if employee wants to know like what his tracking policy says and how does the penalization happens, so there you have this view tracking policy. So every individual would be able to view this web tracking policy, where he would be knowing like what his tracking policy says and what happens when the employee has no attendance for that particular day. So what happens when he's late arrival, work hours, missing swipe. So you would be able to view all the settings, and every individual as an employee would be able to view the settings. Okay. So whenever any penalizations happen, that would be visible for that particular day itself. Okay. So I'll just go to one of the employees profile. Okay. So there you would be able to view. So leave deducted as no attendance log for that particular day. Okay. So even you would be able to find the reason, like for which reason you are being deducted that leave. Okay. So if you just want to regularize for this particular day or apply leave, so you'd be able to apply a leave for that day. Okay. So under leave tab, you would be able to view like what was the reason for your leave getting deducted from your bucket, right? So approved by attendance tracking policy, and the reason is leave deducted as no attendance for the particular day, right? So there may be other certain reasons if you have not completed the gross hours, or if you are exceeding the late arrivals limit. Okay, so all these reasons would be captured over here, right? So while coming to the reports, what we have for this, right? So we have this work days and effective hours report. Okay, so I'll just take last 30 days. Okay, so I would be able to pay how many days the employer was present, absent, total leaves taken, total penalized, how many, total leaves, how many week offs, holidays. So everything you would be able to view it in detail, like total shift hours are how many gross hours the employer has completed, how many effective hours, total overtime hours for the day. Okay, so everything you would be able to capture, right? So we have this negligence report as well, and punctuality reports. Okay, so if you just have a glance on it, so we have this no shows. Okay, if their employer has no attendance for the particular day, so all those employees would be captured in this particular report, which is no shows. And under latecomers, if the employee is coming late for the particular day, we would be able to capture early leavers if the employee is early leaving. Okay, so next report refers to missing swipes. Whenever employer forgets to swipe in or swipe out for that particular day, we would be capturing. Okay, so if any of the employees taking frequent breaks, okay, employee moving out of the office very frequently, so if you want to capture that as well, we have that report. Okay, so if the employees who work least, the employees who has least as worked, we can capture, and we can also capture penalized leave. Okay, right. So coming to the punctuality reports, we have this arrival details for that particular day, clock in and clock out details, break time details, average work hour, daily performance, monthly performance. So you have all these reports in detail under the, if you just navigate to time attendant reports. Okay, so you would be able to get it monthly, daily, and weekly reports as well. So you have a date filter over there. Okay, so that's bring the end of the session for this particular week. So let me just quickly answer if you have any questions that I missed, or if you want me to answer anything. Right. So how to do if paid leave after confirmation? How to do to download that another can we get. Hi Sunita, how do we update the manual leaves in Keka? So right, so manual leaves in the sense, so from the first question would be like, why do you want to update the manual leaves? Because we have the automations in place, right? So when everything is getting automated, like why do you want to keep that manual uh, pressure in place? I don't. So we do have in place, like if you just navigate to time attend and leave plan. Okay, so there you have these initial adjustments. So right, so if you just navigate, I'll just quickly share my screen on that part. Diksha, I'll just come back, just hold on. So right, so we have this time attend and leave plans. Okay, so there you have these initial adjustments. Okay, so by using this, you would be able to adjust your all leave balances. Okay, so whenever you are doing that, it's strictly suggested to take help of the Keka support. Okay, so it's not suggested to do your own, because sometimes the data would get mismatched, and again we need to sit for days and days to sort it out. Right, so which attendance report we need to download to check final attendance including leaves and LOPs? So Diksha, you can refer to this, which report is that, daily performance and monthly performance report, so where everything would be captured in a single page. Okay, Anurag. So your question was your previous recordings. Right. So Anurag, was it Anurag? Yep. So Anurag, I've shared the link of the Vimeo link. Okay, so here you would be able to find the recordings of all the previous sessions that has been completed till date. And coming to this particular sessions recording, you would be getting it over the email once the session has been done. So you would be getting the recording of all this recording to your registered email ID. So once the session is done. Yep, you're welcome. So any more questions that I missed? Share the last session with me also. Mainka Sharma, I have shared you the link, right, which is vimeo.com/kekhr. So in that you would be able to find all the recordings till date. Okay, so if you have any other questions, you can just shoot it out. We have a few more minutes, so soon we will be ending the session. Thank you, Avani. Adnan. Okay, sorry, we have a question from Venus. I have not spoke, Anurag. I have a question. Abdullah, yes, tell me. We have a question from Vincent. We have the official hours from 9 to 6, and we have given a grace period of 60 minutes. So we're going to after the login and post 10 a.m. So how do I set the shift timings then? So you can set the shift timings as 9 to 6 itself, because you are just giving the you are giving the grace period of 60 minutes. Your regular shift starts from 9. Okay, still you are giving the grace period of 60 minutes. Okay, so that means employee is late, right? Thank you. Thank you. Right. So please navigate to final attendance reports. So right. So you would be having this daily performance report and monthly performance report, Raviteja. You would be able to grab it under time attendance reports, under punctuality reports. You will be able to get the final reports. So, but what if the late mark has to be only for them who punched after 10 a.m.? Yeah, definitely. So if you just selected it as 60 minutes of grace period, right? So anyone who punched after 10 a.m. would be marked as for penalty. Okay, go ahead. And you mentioned you will have another continuing session. Yep, Baljinder, it was done. Baljinder Kaur, it was already done. We had 2 sessions on Keka. So Vincent, I think I've covered your question. Like any person who comes after 10 a.m. would be treated as for the penalties. Okay, cool. Right, so we'll just quickly wind up the session now. Thank you everyone for joining for today's session. So it was really nice that interacting with you, and we'll again come back on next Thursday at 4 a.m. sharp. We'll try to make sure we'll not make any delay like that we had today. Till then, stay safe and take care, everyone. Bye bye. Have a nice weekend.